I wasted an hour and 30 minutes of my life watching this movie, and I am not happy about it. I could have literally done anything else this Saturday night. I could have slept, I could have ate something, I could have just stared at the wall, and staring at the wall will be way more entertaining than this movie. And what I'm talking about is Harold and the Purple Crayon. It's starring Zachary Levi as Harold, and on paper, the concept for this movie could have worked, in my opinion, if it was catered to a more mature audience, because the movie is based on this children's book called, the same title as the movie's title, Harold and the Purple Crayon. And Harold is this child that can draw literally anything with this purple crayon. Anything you can think of creatively, he can just draw it with that crayon. And his allies are a moose and a porcupine. But something happened in that universe of the Purple Crayon book that caused Harold, Moose, and Porcupine to be put into the real world, aka our Earth. And I'm gonna tell you this right now, Zachary Levi, unfortunately, he has fell from grace, because I wouldn't have done this role. The story, I know it's catered to a more family friendly G like type of audience. I know it's catered to that, but the story is just so mind-numbingly mid that if I was Zachary Levi, I would have declined, in my opinion. And from seeing him, who was Shazam at one point, even though the second movie of Shazam was ass, the first movie of Shazam was pretty good. I liked Zachary Levi's role in that movie. It was a pretty good movie. To fall from that to here, and he was even fired, dang, I'm just like, I feel for the guy. But he did what he could. He played Harold with the little material they gave him. Everyone played their part with the little material they were given, and he did the best he could. But the story of this movie, or what you could call it, is just something that you will not be satisfied after leaving the movie, because Harold and his companions, they are lost. They are trapped in the real world, and Harold and Moose, they're driving, trying to find the old man. The old man is who basically is not their dad, but who they listen to and who they idolize, basically. But as they're driving, they now get into a car crash because Terry and Mel, Terry is Mel's mom, Terry and Mel, they run into Harold and his car. And the reason why they did is because Terry, she saw Moose, the aka the Moose man. He morphed into a moose as they crashed into each other. So something's causing his universe and the real universe to be in the same realm. Not really, but they're trapped and they need to go away. So as the movie's going on, they need Terry's help. The cliche type of, oh, we need your help, we need to crash into your house. We're two strange guys who are bonding with your son, and now we're bonding with your son. You're getting a little bit creeped out of it, but they're not really going all the way, because the reason why they're bonding with the son is because Mel saw Harold draw a tire behind Terry's back, and when he drew that tire, Mel just became basically idolizing him there. And Mel was looking for a father figure, but he now saw Harold, and he is seeing his powers, he's seeing the abilities he can do, and he thinks that's cool. So as Harold and Moose are living with each other in Terry's attic, the cliche story that since they're not from this realm, everything that is in the real world is so new and foreign to them, so they act like complete idiots learning about the standing bed, even though the bed wasn't standing. Moose is so happy about that. They're learning about where Terry works. They think that, oh, that's a great place you work at, where you can just get anything you want. Terry doesn't like that job, but it's that type of cliche, type of story beat that I've seen many times, and has been done better many times before. So as the story progresses, we're seeing that Harold, he created and drew a lot of pies. Terry, one time she mentioned she doesn't like the color of her house, so he changed the house to purple. And as we're seeing this, Mel, he just likes what he's seeing. He's a kid, so he idolizes these powers. But Terry does not want it. Terry wants them out of her house because they agree that they'd only stay for just one night. So Terry kicks them out. Harold cracks the crayon and gives Mel a piece of the crayon. So when that happens, Mel is supposed to go to school, Terry is going to work. The two main characters are supposed to be going on their way, but Mel now turns around and follows Harold and Moose, wants to go on an adventure to help them find the old man so Mel can now be happy. So they now go on this adventure trying to find the old man. They now go to the library, and this is where they meet the antagonist, Gary. Now, Gary is this failed writer who is trying to write this book about this mystical place where he dreams of Terry is actually the love interest of the main character himself, and he's a failure. His book isn't going nowhere. He's getting no sales. So when they come in and try to find someone who can help them find the old man, Gary isn't trying to help them at first, but Mel brings up that, you used to like Terry, so if you could help us out, Terry will really appreciate it. So Gary is like a simp. He's like a real simp. He really wants to gain Terry's affection. So he agrees reluctantly to help them out. It doesn't work until Gary mentions, why don't you just draw a plane that you can ask for the old man? So they now do it, and as Harold is trying to draw the plane, we see that Gary is watching on, and he wants that crayon. So he wants to draw his book as if it's real life. He wants everyone to see how great he is. So that's where the main plot has started. So as the adventure's going on, that thing didn't work. So when Terry's at her job, she's getting a lot of calls from these old men because the plane, they basically said, call this number, which was Terry's number. So as she's at her job, she runs into Harold and Moose. They come to the place and they start to cause a wreck because during that this is going on, Mel got suspended. So Terry has to now go back to school to get Mel from school. Then she now gives Harold and Moose the place that she works at, the vest, so that they can now work for her shift, if that makes sense. And as this is going on, they're just destroying everything. Some customer wants a Puma. Harold actually draws a real life Puma. There's a Puma in the store. He draws a helicopter toy for a kid, a real helicopter toy that actually is flying, causing chaos everywhere. And Moose, he's pretty funny. I ain't gonna lie. He's the only person in this movie that I actually found pretty funny. His jokes throughout the movie, they landed for me. I liked his humor of not knowing anything, but just being a dumbass at the same time. So I won't really say anything bad about Moose, just that he doesn't have a real character. He's just like a character that's static. He's just following Harold, and Harold is the only character in this movie, well, besides Terry, that gets an actual character growth, But as this is going on, Terry now comes back. She sees all the chaos. She gets fired because this is basically her fault. So now Terry's jobless. Mel, he's suspended in school. A lot of things is not working right. And Terry, after they go out on this evening thing where Terry's playing the piano, after all of this, she now has had enough of Harold and Moose's antics. She wants Harold and Moose out of her life. And then when she does that, Harold just seems so devastated. He seems completely devastated, and it now makes Moose and Porcupine get erased. Everything that Harold has done so far with the crayon is getting erased because I don't know how the crayon works. I don't know how they make it work. I think it's like if you have good self-esteem or if you're positive, but they're saying it like you had to be creative to make it work. So I don't know why they started to disappear when Harold got sad. They didn't really make any sense. But when Harold got sad, we see Gary now meet Harold, and Gary, he now manipulates Harold to gain the crayon. But Mel knew something was wrong. I don't know how. Every time something happens, like Terry and Gary, they all know exactly where they are. It's as if they have like an air tag on these characters that no matter where they are, no matter how far they are, they just always meet up. So the movie ends where Gary manipulates Harold to gain his crayon. He kidnaps Harold, kidnaps Mel, traps him in a crater dungeon. He tries to show his dominance to the world. He has this horse carriage, and Harold and Mel escape because Mel still had that cracked crayon. So they now go and find Gary. They now find Gary. They start to fight in this fight that they're just drawing and they're countering each other's moves, basically like a role-playing fight. And it's just like a weak fight in my opinion, because I just didn't really care at this point. I just didn't really care for this movie at this point. But as this is going on, Gary swallows a crayon, gains powers in his hand, so he has the powers in his hand. Then as all hope is about to be done because Gary was about to win, we now see the return of Moose and Porcupine because Harold has found himself. He's found that he really is a good guy, basically. That's what the premise of the movie is. But that's still not enough. So then Mel now has his whistle where he has his imaginary friend. I forgot to tell you that he drew his imaginary friend earlier, and his imaginary friend is like this dragon. But that still doesn't work until Moose now rams into Gary, knocking him out and spitting the crayon out of his system. But there's one death in this movie that it was kind of fucked up because after the fight, Harold draws a door so that Gary can be happy in this fake world he wants to live in. But the dragon burns that door and traps Gary in there. Like, I ain't gonna lie, would the police implicate all these people with Gary's murder? Because how the hell can Gary get back? Because at the end of the movie, Harold and Moose eventually get back to their place. So in my opinion, I think Gary's dead, man. I think that nigga's gone, man. They gotta be implicated in some way. But this movie, if you want to bring your kid to this movie, if you want to have a family time, fun time with your kid, you could probably watch this movie. You know, you could probably watch and have fun with your kid. Who, if your kid has like a great imagination, you could probably watch it. But if you want to watch a good story, a fun story for children, if you want to watch a cohesive story or a good funny story, this movie has none of those qualities. This movie was a chore to go through. Zachary Levi's career, I think it's done after this movie, but we'll have to see. But this movie, I would not recommend it if you want to have a good time by yourself or with adult friends, man. In my opinion, this movie had a decent concept on paper because, like I said in the beginning of the video, if this was a more mature type of story where somewhat like a story from Marvel that was actually with good writers, or a story from DC, or hell, Amazon like The Boys or Invincible, this could work. But on its own ass. At the end of the video, I'm out. Peace.